What is your most shameful NSFW moment? Story 1. When I was with my ex, we did some long distance for a while. While I am not about sending nudes, after not seeing each other for a long time, you kinda just get an urge to see the other person naked, so nudes were exchanged. She was mostly interested in close-ups of my erect dong, so I sent those. Upon returning home, I discovered that she had set a picture of my erect dong as my profile picture in her phone, meaning that if I'd call her, my dong would be presented on the screen in all its glory. I told her this was a very stupid idea. What if I call her and her phone was laying around somewhere? She said she never had her phone laying around, so no one would see it. I didn't think much of it. A few weeks later, we were having dinner with her parents and she was talking about getting a new phone. Her father, with a straight face and in between 2 bites of food, remarked, "Gee, if you get this new phone, does that mean you'll install a different picture for when he calls you?" I died 1,000 deaths. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. My high school girlfriend many decades ago giving me an enthusiastic BJ. Right at the very moment I nut, her mother came home. It startled my GF to the point she accidentally inhaled my nut and jumped up, headbutting me in the nose. Literally seconds after, her mom bursts into her room to see her daughter buck nude on all fours, coughing out nut like a cat with a hairball. And me, buck nude with a rock-hard erection and covered in blood. Story 3. I have vitiligo, meaning patches of my skin have no melanin at all. It's not very noticeable as I'm fairly light-skinned, and except for a couple patches on my hands, it's mostly on my dong. When I was maybe 15, a girl I had a crush on noticed the patches on my hands and asked about it. I explained what it was and she asked if I had it anywhere else. I answered, as I said, it's mostly on my dong. She kinda chuckled and said, "So it looks like a cow?" I said, "Yes, it does in fact look like a cow." She said, "I would love to see it." I said, "Yeah, it's weird." Turned around and walked away completely and entirely oblivious. Story 4. I was very young, like 10 or younger, and I would stay up late at night to watch adult videos. It was in the 90s, so there was no hub or anything, and I was mostly just looking up the sites and getting excited at the free samples. One night, all of a sudden, I feel a lot of guilt for looking that up and felt like I did something evil. I walked up to my mom crying and basically turned myself in of looking up adult videos as if I had killed someone. To my mom's credit, she didn't mock me or yell at me or anything. She just laughed a little and gave me a talk about how it's okay to be attracted to women and want to see a naked body, just to do it in a safe and healthy manner. Looking back, I'm always very embarrassed about the whole incident, but I'm also a little proud of my mom for being so open and chill. Story 5. My high school girlfriend and I were banging in the sideways laying down cuddling position. Mom walked in to show me a new Christmas decoration. To her, it looked like we were cuddling, but she sat on the bed inches away from me, actively inside of her, and proceeded to talk about the decoration for like 10 minutes. I wonder if she knew. They never cared much about that stuff, so honestly, I think she was just really oblivious. Story 6. First time I looked at adult videos, I got a virus on my laptop. It turned my camera on and locked my laptop and said, "This is the FBI, pay X fine." I was white as a ghost and went and told my mom and dad. Stupid me didn't realize it was fake until dad showed me it was BS. The fright of it got to me. To this day, dad still laughs about it and comments about it randomly. Story 7. In the 90s/late 2000s, we bought a pub and moved into it. It had a big screen downstairs and we lived above. But Sky Sports was so expensive for the business account that we basically hooked the giant screen to our box upstairs, so whenever the sport was on, it would show on the screen downstairs. So we couldn't watch TV upstairs except what was being shown on the big screen when this was happening. Anyway, one Sunday evening around 10 p.m. after the sport, bearing in mind the sport finished at about 6 p.m., I was freely browsing through channels because the giant screen has been wound up into the ceiling and my 14-year-old self came across some softcore adult videos. Curious, I started watching it. Suddenly, there was a big buzz from the phone that connected to downstairs. I answer it. It's my mom with laughing in the background. "What are you watching?" I was like, I was just flicking through channels. "Well, you've stayed on that one for a while, haven't you?" I forgot about the small TV in the bar area. It was still on and was showing the entire pub what my horny 14-year-old butt was watching. I was mortified. Luckily, my mom never brought it up again, and neither did any of the customers. Story 8. In grade 8, we didn't have internet at home, which wasn't unusual at the time. I saw this lady on TV and she had really large breasts and she advertised her web page. This was something I just had to see. The internet was still enough of a novelty that any website was worth checking out, but adult content was, up until now, only available by stealing dirty mags. So the next day in design class, I take the computer at the far end of the room, which was flanked by the darkened windows of an adjacent classroom. You can guess where this is going. I turn the screen away from my classmates and teacher and start looking at the glorious, bountiful bosoms of this woman. Moments later, I notice movement in my peripheral vision, and when I turn my head, I see the classroom I thought was empty was in fact full. It was full of laughing and pointing seniors. Their teacher rushes in the room screaming, "You can't do that!" grabs me by the wrist and physically pulls me to the principal's office. The principal was the best. He just looked at me and asked, "No internet at home?" And when I said no, he said, "Well, I think you've been through enough. Don't do it again," with a chuckle, and let me go without further punishment. Needless to say, I was pretty much famous in my high school, and in the worst way possible. People would literally point and laugh at me in the halls. Screw my life. Story 9. I was once extremely drunk and staying in a very expensive hotel in Hollywood. I went to bed as I should. I woke up in the middle of the night and had to pee. I walked through the bathroom door and closed it behind me. I then realized that wasn't the bathroom door, but rather the room door. I was locked out of my room in a fancy hotel, drunk off my butt, wearing only my underwear. I went to the elevator lobby where there was a phone and called the front desk and explained my situation. They said they would send someone up. I realized I couldn't wait and continued to search for a place to pee and found a janitor closet with a rolling mop bucket in it. I took a giant leak in the mop bucket and then walked back to my room door, where a bellhop who really didn't want to look me in the eye let me back into my room. I am very sorry, Mondrian Hotel. Story 10. In high school, my girlfriend wanted me to send a video jerking off through Snapchat. My phone was sort of broken and glitched a lot. Well, half an hour later, she calls me and tells me, "You posted it on your story!" Sure enough, I had posted a video of myself spanking the monkey for all of my friends to see. My phone had glitched, and I guess it thought I'd pressed the story button as well as sending it to her. Story 11. When I was about 13, I would pretend I was 18 plus on Habbo Hotel and other stupid sites, and then strike up connections and talk dirty. As dirty as a religious, sheltered 13-year-old girl can be, with total strangers across the internet who were absolutely far older than I. I used some random unknown actress as my fake DP. My mom found out what I was doing and made me read several entire MSN Messenger conversations out loud to her so I would hear my own shameful words. Absolutely mortified. Story 12. A cheap bachelor party fake dong melted in my bedside drawer after the AC in my room broke for a week. But I didn't know that until I got my hand stuck in it in front of a guy who was asking me out. I opened the drawer and reached in looking for my chapstick while we were talking, and to my absolute horror, I couldn't pull my hand back out. It was completely stuck to something. It turns out that a fake silicone vibrator I got as a gag gift melted around the 3 other real silicone ones and then started to cure again. It was like half-dry super glue, but, shaped like a 4-headed dong. It looked weaponized. And crucially to the story, it was stuck to my hand. The dude tried to help me, but he just ended up getting it on his hands too. We had to take turns spraying each other off with scalding hot water to get it off. I've never been so mortified in my life. Needless to say, we never saw each other again. Story 13. When my friends had to change my hygienic pad at a party in high school where I was drunk out of my mind. They gave me a shower to wake me up and took off the used pad and put a new one on and helped me get dressed. Not my proudest moment. Edit. In the same vein, I brushed a friend's teeth after a party because he was super out of it, but he hated the taste in his mouth. We put him on a mattress to sleep, and I got a new toothbrush with a little bit of toothpaste and gently brushed his teeth as he was laying there smashed. Then I put a water bottle and a bucket next to him and he fell asleep like a baby. Story 14. Here goes. I was 13 and had found my mom's vibrating bullet while she was at work. A little thing coated in rubber with a wire coming out of the bottom leading to a remote to control intensity. I had recently learned guys have G-spots from that scene with Sean Scott in Road Trip, milking the prostate. I was curious, so I proceeded to fully insert it to test it out. Didn't feel a thing from it even at the highest setting, so figured it was time to pull it out. Except it wouldn't budge. I was getting worried and tugging with more and more force when the wire snapped off, leaving just the bullet inside. Had a mini panic attack before deciding to try pooping it out, which worked. I washed it several times because the smell of crap on it just refused to go away. I finally gave up and packed it back where I found it with the wire snapped and still smelling of poop. My mom never brought it up and I banned butt play from my life forevermore. Story 15. When I was around 10 or 11 years old, my dad got my brother and I a computer to use. He set it up in the den and pretty much allowed us free, unsupervised access to it. Had gone out with his friends one night, and my brother, one of his friends, and myself were on the internet just typing random things and adding .com to it. Now, back in the early 2000s, it didn't take long for us to stumble upon adult content, which led us to clicking on more and more links because we were all like, holy crap, there's naked women on here. Eventually, we bricked the computer and it blue screened on us. Instead of turning it off / unplugging the computer / turning off the monitor, we just left it and went to bed. My dad got home and saw the blue screen. He did the old Control-Alt-Delete trick to pull up the task manager, saw that we had adult content pulled up on the web browser. At this point, he makes us all come out of the den, sits us on the couch, and tries to make us confess to why the computer blue screened. Well, of course, all of us shrugged and acted like we had no clue. He then turned the monitor on and went through the internet history. We all had to sit there while my dad clicked through some of the most heinous, debased crap I've seen in my life. The whole time, he was just reading out the history, and then he'd say something like, Jesus frickin' Christ, what the hell is wrong with you all? Yeah, that computer did not last very long. Story 16. One time, my best friend in high school had brought this weird lotion to school. It was a hand lotion that had glitter. It smelled really nice, but when you'd squeeze it out, it was bubbly. And when you'd rub your hands together, the lotion would fizz in your hands, kind of like liquid pop rocks or intense carbonation. It was so fascinating, and I always asked to use it on my hands. My friend took a notice, and they bought some for me as a gift for my birthday, or maybe Christmas. I don't entirely remember. Either way, they gave me some. It stayed in my bed for a while and lingered around my room until one fateful night, browsing adult content, I remembered of its existence. Thought it would feel really nice to, put it down there while I did the deed. It would be a fizz on my kitty, and I was interested. I put a tiny bit on my finger and tested it. Barely felt it, but what I did feel was strange, so I grabbed a whole handful and smacked it on there. The pain I felt was so immense and sudden, it was like a burning hot fire between my legs. Got up immediately, waddling through the hallway like I crapped myself, and hopped in a bath. At midnight. Even after washing it, it had a lingering feeling, like when you literally burn yourself with fire. I think the lotion was also a disinfectant. Afterwards, my kitty was super dry, but it probably was extremely clean and smelled nice, so yeah. Story 17. I banged with my boyfriend for the first time during my first year of college. I was a super sheltered, traditional Christian-raised dummy. Was taught a lot of stuff incorrectly and had to relearn everything late in life on my own, usually only as it came up. And was very paranoid of pregnancy / thought of banging before marriage as super taboo, so I definitely felt like a badass playing with fire. At the end, I let him finish on my chest and then showered it off. Fun was had. Fast forward to a week later. I'm visiting my mom when I have a thought. If I had nut on my chest and then in the shower it ran down my front and then I washed my... I got up in the middle of the night and used her computer to start Yahoo answerings myself into tears. I didn't dare make a post about it myself in case it could lead back to me somehow, but unsurprisingly, a lot of people had similar concerns from identical situations. And a lot of other people said, yeah, you can get pregnant that way. My mom heard me and came out to ask what was wrong. So 19-year-old me started ugly crying, and I basically told my mom that I let my boyfriend nut on my breasts and I think I'm pregnant, please don't hate me. Epilogue is that she basically eye-rolled at me and said that the chances of getting pregnant for that bordered on ridiculously low, if not impossible, and told me to just get on birth control. My mom is actually great. She was just given very bad info when it came to educating me about stuff like banging. And that's the story of how I came to tell my mom my boyfriend gave me a pearl necklace and I thought I could get pregnant from it. Story 18. I have a few, but one that sticks out is this. So when I was a teenager, I was banging with a guy I worked with, and I had a 15-hour shift and I was so tired and the banging was quite frankly boring as hell. So don't ask me how, but I started to fall asleep. The guy was kind of a creep now I look back on it, and definitely could tell, but also definitely didn't care. Anyway, I was in that state where I'm practically asleep, but still a bit there, and I guess I started dreaming. In my dream, I went back into work and was looking for my friends. I saw one of them and she smiled and ran over to me, so I shouted, "Hi, Charlie," to her. Well, with that, I snapped back to reality and woke up, and I realized that I had actually shouted it out loud. Very loud. And this guy was staring down at me with a very confused look on his face. To my dismay, every time I saw him at work after that, he greeted me with a, "Hi, Charlie." Story 19. I used to read some weird erotica when I was younger, as I hated all adult content in video form. I distinctly remember reading one that had women in stalls like cows. They kept using this term "Hugh cow," which at the time I didn't realize was an obvious mashup of the word human and cow. Anyway, I didn't think much of it, but one time I was talking to a friend and I was trying to remember the term for a female cow. My brain thought, "Hugh cow," and I almost said it before catching on. I know they probably wouldn't have got it, but it killed me inside that I almost said something from some pretty weird adult content. Story 20. When I was 12, I was alone at home after school. Felt pretty frisky, as 12-year-old boys feel. I tuned into the hub, put on my headset, and started to go to work. Just as I'm about to finish, I see my younger brother and his friend walk into my room, and they both watch me nut. They did a 180 and left my room without saying a word until they got to my brother's room. Then they started laughing. And the "I don't want to live on this planet anymore" meme sums up my experience pretty well. We never said a word about it, and I hope they have forgotten about this, but that is unlikely. I know I wouldn't. Story 21. When I was 17 or something, I was watching adult content in the middle of the night. After I did my deed, I felt a slight pain in my balls, like someone flicked their finger on them. The pain increased to the point that I had to walk it out. After some minutes, I began screaming from the pain when my parents came into the room. Don't worry, I wasn't naked anymore, seeing me in pain on the floor. At that moment, I thought I did something wrong while jerking it, but was too ashamed to tell them. My dad rushed me to the emergency room where I was rushed in and my pants were removed. Laying there, dong out, they gave me a nose spray which halted some of the pain. The doctor then started fondling my balls while the nurse stood next to me reminding me to breathe because the nose spray stopped the automatic breathing, if that makes sense. All the while, my dad is standing there looking, and the only thing I could think of at that moment was, "Oh no, do they think my dong is small?" After that, the doctors brought me into another room while my dad was in a different room. While going through the halls, I told the doctor I probably know the cause and explained that I was jerking it. I don't remember the doctor's response, but I felt truly ashamed, like I was the only person who'd ever done such a thing. Later, the doctor told me I had testicular torsion, which is caused by the balls not being attached to the sac, so I'm living in fear of it happening again to this day. Story 22. I was 18. Came home very drunk from a night out and hopped into bed with my then girlfriend. Fortunately for me, she woke up and was keen to fool around. Me, being in the state I was in, didn't have time for lubricant and/or aiming and went in hard and fast. The first and only push led to what I can imagine as the equivalent of snapping your Achilles tendon. Except this tendon wasn't located in my leg, it was in fact my frenulum. Google it. Instantly, I panicked. I turned the light on and told my ex to hang on. I looked down to see that I'd basically snapped my banjo string in half and essentially given myself a DIY circumcision. There was a lot of blood. I played it cool though. My gut instinct was to run to the bathroom. Once I made it here, I wrapped my wang in toilet paper like Tutankhamun, emptied out the toothbrush cup holder, filled it with warm water, and stuck my dong in the cup to try to cool it down. It hurt. By this time, I'd lost a fair amount of blood, and me being me, hypochondriac/bad with blood, tried to sit down on the side of the bath to try to not pass out. Didn't work. Anyway, long story short, I woke up to my ex-girlfriend's dad standing over me at 7 in the morning, around 3 hours later, after he had followed a trail of blood down the hallway to where he would normally take his morning shower. There I was, laying in the bathtub, passed out, dong wrapped up in toilet paper, shoved inside his toothbrush cup holder, naked as the day I was born, covered in blood. My partner at the time fell back asleep after I'd left the bedroom that night, and left her poor father to find me blackout drunk in his bathtub after trying to bang his daughter. He thought I was dead. I just wished I was. Story 23. I was 16 and my girlfriend and I were in her room and doing the deed with the lights off under the covers, and her mom walks in, not realize what we were doing since the lights were off, and casually starts talking to her daughter. After a little bit, she did realize what we were doing and she storms off. Another time, same place, same girl, same mom, she walks in when we're sitting in my girlfriend's bed naked, reaching for my underwear. I was really ashamed. Her mom, too.